You're listening to the Reds Podcast.
This is episode number 133. I'm talking to Lee Cockerell, former Executive Vice President of Operations for Walt Disney World Resorts, and we're going to talk about Disney marketing secrets.
This is the Red Podcast. Real entrepreneur development. Make more money, work less, and live a life of freedom. No BS advice that really works. Here's your hosts, David Hooper and Laurel Staples.
David here. I've got Lee Cockerell on the line. He's former Executive Vice President of Operations for Walt Disney World Resorts. During his time at Disney, he managed 40,000 employees. He was in charge of 20 resort hotels, 4 theme parks, 2 water parks, just to name a few of his many responsibilities. We're going to talk about the secret behind Disney. We're going to talk about how to hire and keep great employees, and also the future of business. Well, you have had quite a career, most notably with Walt Disney.
Well, I did, and I got lucky. They called me back in 1990 and said, would you like to move to Paris to open Disneyland Paris? And my wife said, yes, we would. She didn't give me any choice. She said, Paris, let's go.
So I'm curious about that. Let's start there. Disneyland Paris, I would imagine, is quite different from the Disneyland we know or Disney World in Orlando, Florida. Were there cultural differences, and how did that come into play when you were opening the Paris version?
Oh, sure. There were huge cultural differences. First, I had to hire 200 managers for the different operations I was responsible for. None of them had worked for Disney before, but they all needed to speak French. First of all, we were creating a Disney where there was no Disney culture. Everybody we were going to hire basically was going to be French and Spanish and German and Irish and British and from Europe. And so it was a lot of them didn't know as much about Disney as American kids do. They don't grow up on it quite as much as they do here. They're more and more doing that, but not back then. And the culture was just different, I think. We had to do everything in 5 languages. I had to staff the hotels with 5 languages for check-in. So when you came in from Spain, somebody spoke Spanish and so on. We had to produce all the written material in 5 languages, the menus in 5 languages. It was quite something. And, when you already have a culture built in, it's easy. But when you have to start one from scratch and kind of educate and orient everybody, it's a lot of hard work. Probably the hardest job I ever had.
The culture of Walt Disney World in general, they're known for customer service.
Yeah,
and
sure.
I would love to know, getting Americans up to speed, I mean, what is that like? Or do people come in, do they understand the level of customer service? And if you have examples of that, I can tell you some stories that I've heard of Walt Disney World, of what you do to maintain the Disney experience. Every detail counts. For example, what I've heard is Main Street, the picket fence is painted every day. Is that true?
Yeah, well, I don't know if it's every single day, but you'll never see that fence not being beautifully bright white. That attention to detail is basically the name of the game. But I can tell you the formula for Disney, and I can tell you any of your listeners can do this in their own businesses. Really, it's 3 things. We're fanatical about who we hire. We're very careful who we hire. We have very good systems for how to interview, what questions to ask, what to listen for, so we can understand what kind of person we're getting. Are we hiring somebody with a can-do attitude versus a can't-do attitude, somebody who'll go all the way for the customer and for the guests? And that we really do a good job of that. We sort them out right up front. Matter of fact, after we tell them what the expectations are, about 25% decide they don't want to work at Disney and they leave without filling out an application.
Can you talk more about that? 40,000 employees that you are over, and that's quite a number.
It's grown even today. It's 72,000 people work in Orlando. About 40 to 50 are in operations, and then there's support, finance, and marketing, places like that. But
and I know a lot of entrepreneurs, they've got maybe 5 or 10 people, small businesses, and they're thinking, man, I can't even find 5 or 10 good people. So how do you do it? Talk more about the hiring process, what you're looking for, and also about weeding out the people who aren't going to be a good match.
Yeah, I think today everybody needs to get better at interviewing. You know, the people who come in for interviews, these kids today go on the internet and they know exactly what to say, how to answer the question. They tell you what you want to hear. You end up hiring the wrong person. You don't check them out carefully enough. You don't really do a background check. You don't really get into why they've had 3 jobs in the last year. We are just fanatical about that, and basically today we want to know people. We really hire attitude, and then we train you. Frankly, we're more interested in having the right attitude, and we can train the skill. And I know for young entrepreneurs it's hard. At Disney it may even be a little easier because there's so many opportunities at Disney for people who want to come in and start. They may start on a front desk checking people in, and 5 years later or 2 years later they might be the manager. And the guy who was the president of Disney started at 17 just counting cash. That was his job. And the lady who was in charge of marketing at Disney was driving a boat when she was 18. So it's a big place, lots of opportunity, and that's one reason we get a lot of people that come to Disney. They know there's opportunity there. They can be promoted through the years and not have to. All they got to do is drive to a new parking lot when they get promoted. They don't have to move to New York or Chicago. So we do have some advantages that way, but I will tell young entrepreneurs, you got to be fanatical. You got to go out and look for the best person. And I don't care if it takes you. You got to get ahead of the game so you've got somebody you're going to hire when next time you have an opening. You've got to work harder at getting great people with a great attitude. I know you got to have the skill often. You got 4 or 5 people. They got to be skilled. But then you just got to don't hire too fast. They say in America we hire too fast and we fire too slow. And we end up with people that are not committed. And then when you only got 4 or 5 people, one person can really hurt your business pretty bad. And so it's got to be a higher priority for the owners to spend more time doing it. Look for unlikely places. Sometimes you could hire a kid going to college and be better than a full-time person and get a couple of good, solid people. You just got to start rethinking how you get the best people you can on board, and then how do you keep them? One way you keep people is to train them and teach them. When people are learning, they kind of stay with you. When you take the time to train them and make sure they know what they're doing and teach them and make them stronger for the future so they can get ahead one day. So that's the one thing we do well. And, I think when you're hiring somebody, you got to look for that passion. You got to look for the can-do attitude and then skill also. And it depends how much skill you need, whether you can train it or whether you can hire it. Yeah, it's tricky and it's hard. And I hear the same thing from many companies. I can't find any good people. They're harder to find, but you got to do it. You can't just give up, because if you keep hiring average people, you're going to have an average company. If you hire great people, you're going to have a great company. And you got to get trickier about it and try to figure it out. Is it easy? No, because everything that makes a difference in the world is hard. I always tell people, do the hard things, life gets easier. Do the easy things, life gets harder.
Do you have any stories of hiring somebody, maybe somebody who did work out or maybe somebody who didn't?
Oh, I can tell many. We had a young lady who she was at Disney, and she was an hourly employee, and she didn't speak English very well, but she was really smart. We saw her in a meeting one day, and we went and encouraged her to get into management, and she said, "No, I have a daughter, and I can't. I got to be home at 5 o'clock." And we said, "Well, we'll work with you. We'll make sure you get home on time." And we finally talked her into it, and she's one of our best managers today. On the other hand, I hired an executive. It took me almost 8 months. I interviewed 13 people. I flew 13 people in. I kept looking. They all had good resumes, but it just didn't fit. I just wasn't happy, and finally I got the right guy, and that was in 96. I hired Carl Holtz, and he's now the president of our cruise line. He's been the CEO of Disneyland Paris. He's done every job. He does it great. It was worth the wait. It was frustrating, I can tell you. A lot of our people said, "Just hire somebody, Lee. You've been working on this for 7 months." I said, "No, I'm not hiring somebody till I get somebody great. I want them to stay for 20 years, and I want them to be able to get promoted and do more and take on more." And Carl just turned out to be fabulous. He ran Epcot, he ran Downtown Disney, and then he was CEO of Paris. Now he's president of the cruise line and president of our Disney Vacation Club. And here's a guy that just keeps going, and it was worth it. It was worth it.
Can you talk about some of the rules that you have in place for employees? Here's another thing that I heard, and you can tell me if this is true or not. No beards at Disney World.
Yeah, that was true over the years, but that's been changed. I'll tell you how we think about grooming guidelines. You couldn't even have a mustache when I joined in 1990. And clean cut, we're putting on a show. Everybody, this clean cut company, Clean Cut America, so that was it. We enforced that. And then about, 10 years ago, 15 years ago, we let them start having mustache. And now today they can have a closely trimmed mustache and goatee, not a full beard. And how we figure that out, we take photographs of cast members with different looks, and we show them to guests, and we let the guests decide. We say, "What in this picture don't you like?" Well, when we showed them pictures of somebody with a mustache, they said, no problem, no issues here. When we showed them goatees, closely trimmed, tidy, neat, they said, no problem here. When we showed them people with tattoos on their neck or on their face or on their forearm, they said, no way. When we showed them piercings in the tongue or nose or cheek, they said, no way. So we kind of let the guest decide what is proper, and it's better than our own little bigotry that we might have, I don't like that. We've learned to get focus groups, show different photos, and make our adjustments based on what the public thinks is appropriate for Disney.
Because I know Disney thinks of every member as a cast member, you mentioned it, because it really is a performance when somebody comes to Disney World. You're giving them a performance.
Absolutely. And that's how we think about it. And I think every one of your businesses out there, if they would think about it the same way, they're putting on a performance. I don't care what business they're in. Dry cleaner, a grocery store, a bar, a restaurant. You want to show up looking professional, be on time. The show's got to start on time. The red curtain opens every morning, and you got to, do I have the right actors? Did I hire the right people? Are they dressed properly? Do they know their script? Do they know what they can say and what they can't say? Are we going to put on a professional show here today? So next time they want their car cleaned, they call me. Everything's referral in life, and everything's comparison, and people should not underestimate the power of first impressions and reliability and credibility and keeping your promises and doing what you say you're going to do. And these are all things that get you the edge over your competitor, and that's what we do. Everything at Disney matters. That's what we say. Everything matters, and we pay attention to every little detail.
Can you talk about some of those? What are the very smallest things that you pay attention to? We talked about, of course, the Main Street fence. I mean, little things that a lot of people would overlook.
Little things are like no trash, period. And we don't, 70,000 people work there now. Everybody picks up the trash, including me when I was executive vice president or the president. Everybody bends over and cleans it up. We check our restrooms every 15 minutes to make sure they're spotless. No paper on the ground, no fly. Everybody goes there. Those kind of little details. We clean and polish everything every day before we open. Main Street is totally cleaned. The whole parks are cleaned every night and steam cleaned. So when you walk in those parks, they don't have that grimy asphalt that you find in a lot of places. I mean, it's a full-fledged, impressive cleaning. It is clean. And then addition, the gold on some of the rides is real gold. I mean, it's not gold paint, and it looks different. The doorknob, we go around the world looking for the authentic doorknob for the attraction. If it's supposed to be themed from France, that doorknob was probably bought in France and it belongs there, and it's the right period, and it's that's the kind of detail with little teeny things that you might not even see, but when you put everything together, it feels differently than everywhere else you go. Attention to detail is an interesting concept.
Well, I love what you're saying about everybody pitching in. I know another thing that Disney does very, very well is that everybody interacts with customers. For example, maintenance men, they are also considered cast members. The cleanup crew, also cast members. They know where directions are, tell people where to go. One of the greatest things I ever saw about Disney were these security guards with the autograph books. Ask the little girls dressed like princesses for their autographs.
That's an incredible thing, and the parents love that. And a lot of cast members carry autograph books and walk up to a little girl with a princess dress on and ask for her autograph, and that little girl beams, and parents take 1,000 pictures, and they love it. And because when you make kids happy, you make parents happy. That's one thing we know for sure. So we teach the waiters how to take the order from the children, how to get the kids whatever they want. Not every kid just wants macaroni and cheese, so we have to run and get it. Yeah, I mean, that's the kind of stuff. Our security guards are nice, and they're paying attention to security. And the reason they're nice is because we make sure they understand that before they join us. We don't let people just come in and do whatever they want and act like a normal security guard out there in a mall somewhere, which is rough and tough and doesn't speak and doesn't smile. Disney people are trained. The zip code at Disney is the safest zip code in America, FBI says, 32830. I mean, we have 1,200 security people on property. It's a safe place. We keep it safe. We pay attention, but we also want our security people to be nice. Bus drivers who sing on the bus, or they give the little kids a honorary bus license when they get off the bus. They don't have to do that, but these little things add up. In fact, little things are what the guests tell us about. They know the big things are going to be good. They're blown away by the little teeny things that they don't expect.
And none of this is by accident. I know Disney has a lot of data. You know exactly how long somebody's saved before they come, how much it costs, how often they come.
We interview 2 million guests a year. Interview 2 million guests on the internet, before they buy an ice cream cone, when they get on a ride, when they get off a ride, when they check in, when they check out. We know everything about them, and we keep improving how we deliver based on what they tell us. And one of the questions we ask: would you recommend this to one of your loved ones or your best friends? And when they say yes, we ask why. And they say, because your cast members are so great, and they paid attention to my son, and we just keep doing more of that. And when they say, no, I wouldn't, we say, why? And they say, because we checked in, and Mary at the desk wasn't nice to us. She didn't pay attention to my son. Then we go have a little chat with Mary to make sure Mary gets retrained, turned around, and gets on the ball before the next day comes. We are always on top of knowing where our guests are coming from. And you don't have to ask too many. I would say the only question you have to ask, and all your entrepreneurs out there, I should ask every one of their customers, would you recommend us to your loved ones and best friends? And when they say no, find out why, and then fix that. If they say yes, keep doing more of that.
Can you talk some about the exclusivity and the higher end options for some guests, specifically maybe Club 33?
Yeah, I don't know a lot about Club 33. It's in Disneyland, and I didn't work there. But Club 33 was originally open because there's no alcohol in the Magic Kingdom, right? It opened as a little restaurant where VIPs and I guess a lot of celebrities and people from Hollywood and Walt's friends and they had a place to go. And I guess this thing just took off. Somebody told me, and I don't know if it's true, that there's like a 20-year waiting list to become a member there. People won't give it up. When somebody dies, the next person in line. And that's why it was put there, And there was no alcohol at the Magic Kingdom in Orlando forever until last year when they opened a new restaurant. And they've got it limited to beer and wine just in that one restaurant. But you got to change with the times. We opened Disneyland Paris with no alcohol, no wine. Can you imagine? France, no wine? I mean, we're lucky we got out of there alive. I mean, French can't eat unless they have wine. They got to have a baguette and wine, and we put it in like the week after we opened because I don't know what we were thinking. You got to focus and take care of the culture, and you got to change with the times. That's why people have mustaches now. That's why we serve wine. You got to keep changing, and as your entrepreneurs know, if you don't keep changing, there'll be some competitor out there trying to take your business away.
Talk more about that, because Disneyland, big organization. You were over 40,000 people, and not just that, but 20 resort hotels, 4 theme parks, 2 water parks. How quickly could change come to such a large organization? It sounds like Disney's really on the ball when it comes to that.
Yeah, I was almost shocked when I joined Disney how quick they could turn on a dime. Frozen came out. You saw the movie this year? It's done $1.5 billion. It was a sleeper. Didn't realize it. Boom, came out. It was highly successful. Within 6-7 weeks, we had merchandise. We had attractions, emergency rebuild at Disney. We spent $10-12 million to build an attraction with ice skating and with frozen characters, just like that. Most companies couldn't do that in 1.5 years or 2 years. And Disney moves quick. And I think we have a culture of people, let's get with it. Disney people, they're at their best when there's a challenge. It's like the Army. When there's a big crisis, we take care of it. We get it done, and we march, and it is unbelievable. Like 9/11 and the hurricanes, we do our best work. When there's a big challenge in front of Disney people, they get it done. And when you got 40, 50,000 people, they can do a lot quick. And you got to have the right attitude, though. And so, Disney moves pretty fast, and because things pass quickly. If you don't get on it, you miss the opportunity for the sale. The next thing you know, that's an old technology or that's an old has-been and nobody cares anymore. So you got to grab it while it's hot. And I imagine a lot of your people that listen to your show here have businesses where you got to grab it while it's hot and make what you can out of it, and then you got to adjust.
Most people have probably heard the term Imagineers, which is a Disney term. Can you talk about Imagineers? Because it seems that the way I understand them, when people are thinking and being creative, that opens you up to opportunities like Frozen. That opens you up to opportunities like a fence that's painted every day just because you're thinking about those kind of things.
Yeah, Imagineering, that's the whole department, and mainly their job is to imagine what can be done. These are the guys, they got huge imaginations. A lot of them are engineers, artists, performers. They have imagination in their bloodstream. They come up with the wildest ideas that I could never do in my whole life. And a lot of that stuff we do is based on engineering. Can you do it? Can you build it? Can you create it? Maintain it? There's a whole team, a separate part of the company that all they do is create. And then on my side of the company, we implement. Once they create it, we run it. It's an interesting concept to separate those two so you get the right kind of people in the development part of the company, and then you get the other side, people who are better at operating and execution.
Well, how did that work together? Because I know from my years in the music industry that you've got creative people and then you've got the people that have to do what the creative people say, and sometimes they don't always agree.
Creative people are tough, It's like a chef. Chefs are very creative, but boy, they're temperamental too. You got to hold their hand. I think our leadership understands that you've got to work with creative people differently. You can't push them around, or you can't blow their ideas off. So we have a lot of respect for them, and they have a lot of respect for us. And I think that's kind of the kind of culture you build in a company is where everyone is important, everybody matters, and you have mutual respect. And I think the CEO or the head of the business or the managers and the leaders have got to make sure that they're being good role models for creating a culture and an environment where everybody shows mutual respect, because everybody's job's hard. And it's easy to say, well, those guys don't do a good job or our job's harder. That everybody's job's hard, as you know. So have a lot of respect, regard, and set up a culture where everybody matters and they know they matter, and all of a sudden people step up and do more.
How did you let people know that they matter, people that were under you?
Hey, boy, that's a great question. I always tell people, you know what's the best way in the world to make sure people know they matter? Tell them. That's, said I used to tell my wife I loved her annually. Now I tell her every day. Life's a whole lot better, baby. Let me tell you. When I was telling her annually, we weren't doing so well. When I started telling her every day I love you, she told me recently she was going to stay, so I know I'm getting better.
Yeah, so don't just assume, right?
Yeah, we're going to be married 47 years in August, so that's a pretty good deal, huh?
While we're on that, before I get to my next question, what's the secret for long-term relationships, business or personal?
Well, go see Frozen, that song, Let It Go, Let It Go, Let It Go. That's the only thing you need to know.
Let's talk about Thrive 15.
Yeah.
Because Thrive15.com, you've got a new venture. Describe what that is.
This is incredible. I'm not the highest tech guy, but I've gotten a lot better at it since I got my own business because, I can't yell at IT to come and help me anymore. I'm at home here, and I yell, nobody shows up. So I started getting involved in technology, and I got a call one day from a fellow saying he's starting this concept, Thrive15.com, and he'd like me to be involved. Basically, it's a website where you actually have it for free for your listeners. If they want it for free for 30 days, they can test it out. If they use the promotion code MAGIC, go in there and use it for 30 days, see if they like it. Then after that, I think it's $49 a month. We have 400 videos so far. I've done 42. I just came back from Tulsa last week. I did 7 more on time management, a time management course for people to be able to take to get themselves more organized. David Robinson, that played for the Spurs and was a graduate of the Naval Academy, has got 20 on there about leadership. We got bankers on there, real estate agents, how to incorporate your business, all the things entrepreneurs need to know. And we're going to have 1,200 videos soon. We're putting out several a week, and it's growing rapidly, the library. And basically, it's 15-minute video on how to hire, how to fire, how to improve customer service. I did 6 videos on time management, but you watch them in 15-minute segments. And every 5 minutes, the video stops and gives you a test to see if you learned. And then it goes forward, and you get points for answering correctly. And then you play against people all around the world. We got 33 countries involved now, and people are playing, and you can win money if you get the right points. And no, we just gave a check to a lady in Las Vegas, an entrepreneur, a young woman, for $10,000. It's an incredible way to learn, 15 minutes at a time. People learn in 15-minute segments. You try to set somebody in a room for an hour or 2 hours, they get preoccupied, they don't pay attention. Most professors are so boring that you want to hope they die. I mean, and this is incredible. And I see my grandkids. They're comfortable doing it on their phone, on an iPad, on their laptop. I think it's the future of education, frankly. I think in 10 years, most kids in America will be able to go to college with this kind of online education that'll be almost free, because a lot of kids can't afford to go to a campus for $50,000, $60,000, $70,000 a year, or even state schools at $7,000 or $8,000 or $9,000 a year. And you talk about the power of online learning, because if you're comfortable doing it, you do it, you take your test, you learn, go sign up for it, try it for a month for 30 days for free. Use the promotion code MAGIC, and I'd love to hear back from people what they think about it.
Are you using the same Disney concepts that you're talking to people who do sign up for it, listening to them and changing as needed?
Absolutely. Today it's almost criminal if you don't go out and learn. You can Google things, you can watch videos. It's easy to learn something today. I mean, every day I see a word, I don't know what it understand. I don't understand what it means, but I tell you, in 2 minutes I get over to Google, I look it up, now I know. I mean, you can get smarter faster today. And if you get smarter faster, you're going to take better care of your customers. And so things like Thrive 15, that's and others things. I got a podcast now myself every Tuesday, Creating Disney Magic, it's called, and it gives you ideas on how to be a better leader, how to be a better manager, how to improve customer service in your business. I just wrote a new book, Time Management Magic, trying to help people get organized. Most people are so disorganized, it's unbelievable, and life is speeded up. Everything's coming at you, and your boss wants it now, and you got a meeting, you got a soccer game, and your wife wants this, and your boss wants something back at Friday at 5 o'clock, and people are spinning, and we've got to help them know that you can put a system in place. Get better organized, and I've been teaching time management for 35 years, trying to help people know that it's not about time management, it's about keeping your life under control, your health, your retirement, your education, all the things that your children, your marriage. I mean, you got to keep these things under control, and it won't happen by accident unless you do something about it. So Thrive 15's turned out to be something. It's really I didn't know when I first looked for it, but it really is quite cool.
What's the secret to your longevity?
I'm lucky. I grew up on a little farm in Oklahoma. My mother was married 5 times. We didn't have any money. I was adopted twice. I got by the name Cockerell when I was 16. Husband number 4 had money. That was good for me. So I got to go to college, but I was a terrible student, so I flunked out. Went in the Army in 1964. Came out of the Army, got a job at the Washington Hilton as a banquet waiter. Let me tell you what, from then on, I was the best little banquet waiter they ever had. And then, you know what happened? I got promoted into a management training. And then I was the best little trainee they ever had. And then I got promoted to it, and I got every job I had. I said, I don't have a degree, so I better be a really good performer. So I showed up work on time early. I took on extra projects. I had the most positive attitude of anybody that ever walked the earth. My bosses didn't care if I had a degree. I got it done for them. And that's what happens. And I keep learning and I keep doing. And, I worked 42 years, and then I started my own company. Now I'm giving speeches and workshops all around the world. This year I went to Kuwait, Chile, Mexico, UK, Germany. Everybody wants to know about Disney service, and they call me and they say, can you tell us the secrets of Disney, Lee? And I say, yeah, if you pay me. I can tell you anything you want. And so it's just you got to just get up and do something, and you got to love it. If you don't have passion in what you're doing, you're going to be bored to death, and then you're going to die. I mean, I really love what I'm doing, and that's half the battle in life. A lot of people are stuck. I tell people, be careful where you get stuck. Don't be miserable.
All right, one more question for you. I know a lot of people, you're one of them, I'm sure, read books. A lot of leaders read.
Yeah.
What is the one book that you feel has changed your life and that you've passed around to others that you've met?
The one that made a major impact on me, I guess one was a course and one was a book. One was taking the time management course back in 1980, a long time ago, 35 years, and learning there is a better way to do things, learning a system. That's why I wrote my book on time management. And second, I think the book Stephen Covey wrote, The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, had a major impact on me. I still have it, and I think it was 88 or 8 or 9 it came out, and it really got me refocused on, am I doing these basics? Am I listening? Am I listening to people, or am I trying to think about how I'm going to win an argument with them? Some of those 7 habits of highly effective people, I tell you, they work in your marriage, and they work in your business, and they work in the community and in your place of worship. And I think that was he was a smart guy.
I think that's a great way to end it, because the 7 habits, as you said, they're just basic. But when you think about the success that you've had, the success that Walt Disney has had, it all comes down to those fundamentals and doing them very, very well.
Yeah, don't get bored with the basics.
Well, Lee, I appreciate you being here. So thrive15.com is the website. Magic is the code to get a free month of that. And you've got a new book coming out.
Yeah, Time Management Magic, how to get more done every day. And it's a easy read, quick read, but I guarantee you after people look at it, they're going to say, most people don't get any training in time management in high school or college, and then they get thrown into management jobs and they don't know what to do. And This book tries to give them some structure and a new way of thinking about how to get things done, which hopefully will help them be able to handle the stress and be able to handle all the things coming at them through the years.
We'll have a link to that book and others on the show notes. Lee, appreciate you being here on Red Podcast today.
Yeah, thanks a lot. Appreciate it.
You've been listening to Red Podcast, Real Entrepreneur Development. Subscribe today using iTunes, Stitcher, or via RSS at redpodcast.com.